The fit-for-purpose framework can help with metrics in at least two important ways. One way has to do with the sheer quantity of metrics companies collect and process and use for various purposes. We notice that the modern trend is that companies drown in data and metrics. They measure everything. There is a data warehouse storing every transaction, every little detail. Companies literally measure hundreds of different metrics about various products and services. So they have volumes of data. And yet companies often lack simple insights into what their customers really value, why they choose their products and services over competitors, and what would it take to make those products and services even better or fitter for the customer's tomorrow's needs.
There's been a tremendous amount of literature written about metrics over a very long period of time. And some, I think, very good writing over the last 10 or 15 years in different ways about recognizing you need to be able to measure things if you're going to manage it. How do you go about measuring things that are quite difficult to quantify? There's some fantastic writing on these topics. Recognizing that if you're using feedback mechanisms in an organization, you need metrics. You need to be able to measure the progress and to compare where do we want to be with where are we now, in order to drive those feedback loops and create continuous or evolutionary improvement. So there's been material on all of these things. However, it became evident to us that there was a gap in the metrics literature, and that there was a lot of loose language being used. For example, key performance indicator or KPI, an idea that had been around for 40, 50 years probably. Well, what exactly does it mean to be a key performance indicator? Well, if you just listen to the English, if we were talking to some lay person who knew nothing about business, they'd say, well, a key performance indicator must be something that's very important. It must indicate some really important aspect of your business performance. And yet we found many businesses are using the term KPI for all sorts of reasons.
We also notice that the way companies use metrics, particularly key performance indicators or KPIs, can often drive dysfunction. Managers, salespeople make their target numbers. They get their promotions and bonuses. And yet customers are not exactly happy, and the business success is not assured, or it's achieved because of some other factors. Workers are overworked. It's not a happy situation, even though targets have been met.
So we asked the question, which metrics actually indicate that you're improving, that you're moving towards a situation of fitness, of customer satisfaction? And we refer to those as fitness criteria, or sometimes just selection criteria. Why, at what level of performance in some aspect, feature, or function of your product or service will the customer say, I'm going to choose you because I really like this. I like what you do here. You're really good at it. So I choose you. I don't choose these other guys. That's selection. And that something that drives selection is a fitness criteria. It's something that says this is fit for purpose. And these are clearly key performance indicators. They are things that indicate that you are going to be selected in the market, you're going to make money, and you're hopefully running a successful, profitable, sustainable business that will survive over the long term. However, there are many other things we might be interested in measuring. And we categorize those into three other categories. There are health indicators. Health indicators typically have a healthy range. There's a minimum and a maximum that would be healthy. And basic things for businesses, such as just transaction volume, that there is such a concept as over trading. Anyone who's studied a little finance will understand the concept of over trading and recognizing that you can be doing too many transactions and not have the capital available to finance it, and that's unhealthy for your business. Businesses go bankrupt because they overtrade. They sold too much. They can't afford to finance it. So the transaction rate is like the heartbeat of your business. And that's a health indicator. If you have no transactions, your heart rate is 0, you're dead. But if you have too many, you may not be able to sustain it, and that may also cause you to die. So health indicators that have a healthy range. And then there are improvement drivers. These are typically health indicators that have moved out of the healthy range. And there's a known, usually, causation, so not just a correlation, but a causation between this particular health indicator and a fitness criteria. So there's a relationship between a fitness criteria, something that's out of range, and you're using it as an improvement driver, and perhaps some other health indicators. So the book uses an example of the cancellation rate for orders of quite expensive fancy cars from a well-known European manufacturer. And the cancellation rate is something that would always have a residual level. And therefore, a small amount of cancellations is probably healthy, it's acceptable. But a large number of cancellations, that begins to affect our revenues, and it shows that our customers must be unhappy in some way. So a customer who selected us, placed an order for a car, time has gone by, and now they've cancelled the order, they've deselected us. So we're not fit for their purpose anymore. So we've got a relationship between fitness criteria and this health indicator of cancellation rate, which has gone out of range. And we know that the cancellation rate, in this example, analysis, questioning customers, why are you cancelling? I've been waiting too long. So the lead time from placing the order to receiving their vehicle was too long. Lead times are fitness criteria. Cancellation rate would normally be a health indicator, but it's risen to a level where it's unacceptable. Now we're using that as a motivator to improve. We want to reduce the cancellation rate. And to do that, we need to decrease the lead time. And to do that, we have to increase the production rate. So the production rate in the factory is like the heartbeat. Production rate is a health indicator. The cancellation rate at this point in time is being used as an improvement driver, but once it's brought back into a normal range, it will return to its status as a health indicator. So these are the three important things: fitness criteria that cause selection, improvement drivers that motivate improvements, and health indicators that are things we want to monitor that should ensure that we maintain the fitness level that we desire. Then the fourth category is, what about all the other stuff we measure that somebody thinks is important, but doesn't seem to actually have a direct relationship our business performance. We labeled these as vanity metrics. They're not always about vanity. They might just be about general mental health. They make us feel good. They don't necessarily indicate that something's going well with the business. And the pursuit of the vanity metric, it can often be addictive. More is always better. And it can actually lead to negative side effects that affect our business badly, that cause us to be deselected. One of the examples we use from the airline industry is that they use on-time departure as a metric. So what percentage of flights left the airport on time, and they don't record how many flights arrived on time. Now, if you're the passenger, you tend to care more about on-time arrival than whether the plane left on time. In fact, if you're a passenger with a connecting flight and your incoming flight is late, and you now have a very short time to make the connection, then you might prefer if the airline waited for you. They knew you're coming, so they delay the outgoing flight by a few minutes so that you can get onto the plane. And it's often the case that you're not the only person making the same connection. So an airline that focuses on on-time departure leaves those connecting passengers stranded in the airport and says, so tough, you just have to wait for the next flight, even if it's tomorrow or 2 days from now. So on-time departure is a vanity metric for airlines.
So the fit-for-purpose framework proposes to break up the metrics universe into 4 large quadrants, 4 different types of metrics, and use each of the 4 types for a very clear purpose, and that avoids dysfunction. Using each metric for its right purpose and not using it for a wrong purpose turned out to be a very powerful tool in making sure that companies are run in a more reasonable, humane, effective way, and in eliminating some of the dysfunctions that we see in companies and government organizations that perhaps don't make such differentiations between metrics, and they see each metric as a number to be achieved. The second important way in which fit-for-purpose frameworks can help with metrics. Well, before I explain it, I should perhaps revisit how metrics have been used historically in various companies. There is a long tradition in statistical process control that started in the mid-20th century and continued well into the early 21st century. We can observe a process, and every day we can record some metric, perhaps multiple times a day. Maybe every time we complete a production of a work item, we deliver another service request, and so on. We can record some properties of it as a metric. At the end of the day, we have a collection of data. At the end of the month, we have even more data. So we can look at the data, and we can calculate, let's say, the average of these numbers. Then we can look at the variance of the data around this average. I don't want to throw around various statistical terms, but as you can imagine, a statistician can, let's say, compute a thing called standard deviation. And let's say, take the average, add and subtract 3 times standard deviation. You know, some of the people listening to this may have done this in their careers. We can find the midpoint in our data set, such as half the points are larger numbers and half the points are smaller numbers, right? That's called the median, or in plain English, say the over-under number. We can divide maybe our data not into two halves, but maybe into 4 parts. Those are called quartiles. Or maybe not 4, but 10. Those are called deciles. Or if we have enough data to make a meaningful division, we could divide it into 100 parts. Those are called percentiles, right? So there's a huge number of statistical manipulations we can do with numbers just for one metric. And remember, companies measure hundreds of metrics, right? So there's a huge scope of statistical work. And what we notice, thanks to fit-for-purpose framework, is there's one important component missing from all this statistical work. An important component, a very simple one. It's comparing this metric to something that is generated outside the process. See, all these metrics and numbers that we observe, record, and then process using all the statistical manipulations, they're all sourced within the process of making a product or delivering a service. So they're all within the company. And no amount of statistical manipulation will compare this metric to an outside number. We have to get out of the building and we have to find, let's say, a customer satisfaction threshold. What does this number need to be for the customer to consider it satisfactory? We cannot answer this question by statistical manipulation. We need to get out of the building and talk to the customer. Or we need to read the customer's mind somehow. And the threshold is essentially external to the process of our, let's say, product development or service delivery. It comes from the outside. And this is where the fit-for-purpose framework builds on that long tradition of statistical process control, because it introduces external yardsticks into the process of metrics analysis. So if you analyze metrics right now, you can improve your metrics practice with one very simple step. Begin to introduce customer fitness thresholds into your analysis of metrics.